Hello and welcome to Notice Tonight, the show that decodes the region. Imagine viewers, drugs worth an estimated rupees 100 crore have been recovered and seized in Manipur in the past 3 weeks or so. This goes to explain the magnitude of the menace, and Chief Minister Biren Singh has rightly launched a war on drugs the moment he assumed office for the second term last month. The success achieved by the Manipur police in its drive against drugs the moment it received a green signal from the Chief Minister goes to suggest that the police can do its job well if it wants to. But what has come to light in the process is disturbing. The specific instances of policemen found to be involved in the drugs trade or the nexus between them and the drug syndicates. At least 2 policemen have been identified and action taken against them. The big question is, how deep or widespread is this nexus? Well, the Manipur police is engaged in the process of weeding out those of its personnel who could have some links. Several questions arise. Can the war on drugs be won simply by police action? Does the state have a workable and effective policy on treatment of their users? Are there adequate treatment facilities? Who is monitoring the private drug de-addiction and treatment centers that have sprung up in the private sector? Poppy cultivation, which the Chief Minister says is backed by insurgent groups currently under ceasefire, is another area that is a cause for worry. Does the government have a policy of providing the villagers growing poppy an alternative mode of livelihood? Since Myanmar is the main source of the supplies, what role is the center playing to deal with the menace? Well, to discuss the subject, I am joined from Imphal by Manipur Director General of Police, Mr. P. Dongal. Also in Imphal, I have Mr. Anand Chabungbam, an internationally acclaimed public health consultant. Joining me from Imphal again is Mr. Nalini Kanta Rajkumar, President, Community Network for Empowerment. Also in Imphal, I have Mr. Bablu Loitongbom, a leading human rights leader. I am also joined from Imphal by State BJP spokesman S. Nongpok Nangba. And at the studios with me in Guwahati is Mr. Rabiul Islam, Managing Trustee, Center for Substance Abuse Prevention and Care, a leading anti-drugs campaigner. But ladies and gentlemen, viewers, before we begin the discussion, let's go straight to Manipur Director General of Police, Mr. P. Dongal, to know firsthand as to how he and his men are dealing with the challenge of drug trafficking in the state. Mr. P. Dongal, the Director General of Police, Manipur, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Dongal, for joining me on Northeast Tonight. Mr. Dongal, the Director General of Manipur Police. Mr. Dongal, Manipur Police is cracking down on drugs with a lot of success in the past few weeks. You seem to have received clear instructions from the new government in the state this time.
You are right. This time the government is also much more stronger, if I should say. So the beat of the government is also different, which has allowed us to work in a more free manner. So the Chief Minister has asked us to really do our best regarding this menace from the police side, because it is not only from the police but many other groups of society, different levels of society are involved. For example, the parents will be involved, their friends will be involved, and as well as the other departments of the government will be involved, the clubs will be involved. But from our side, he has given us this instruction, and we are also following it up and doing our best to get into the bottom of this problem.
Right. Mr. Dongal, the drug dealers have deep transnational linkages. Is Myanmar the only source of the supplies which come into Manipur?
Not only Myanmar, there are also some clandestine factories, as well as factories that are not located at one place, which can be shifted from place to place, because converting the opium from brown sugar is not so difficult. You need just very few basic equipments and some catalyst type of materials. That is why a lot of things come from Myanmar, that is true, but there is also definitely some process going on in the state as well.
Right. You have been saying that insurgents have a nexus with drug dealers. Now, is drug trafficking, according to you, the main source of funds of the Northeast insurgent groups? What do you think?
Well, it is one of the main source, but definitely I will not say it is the main source as such, but it is one of the main source for financing their organizations.
Now, how serious is the police drug syndicate nexus in Manipur? At least 2 policemen have been found to be directly involved. Of course, you have taken action against them.
We are doing our best to separate the good and the bad, and rewarding the good people and trying to take out the bad people from our forces. Regarding these 2 people that you have mentioned, one has been already dismissed from the service because that service rule under which he is, the person was a VDF, so we can do that. But the other one is a government servant, I mean a proper government servant. So the process of DE after suspension has been initiated, and accordingly it will draw to its own conclusion.
Right. Are senior police officers engaged in this screening process to zero in on policemen who could be involved?
Yes, some senior officers are doing it.
Okay, some senior officers are on the job. That's what the GGP is saying. Well, you know, I was talking to the Chief Minister, Mr. N. Biren Singh, a few days ago. He said some insurgent groups currently under suspension of operation agreement are supporting or backing villagers in growing poppy.
First of all, see, it is true that the SOO groups some of them are indulging in this, and they are also actively encouraging it because, like you said, like we discussed earlier, it is one of their main sources of income. What we have been trying now in the last few days, what is different from the previous administration is that now we have found that, for example, the land belongs to only 4 categories of people. That is, one is the village chiefs in the Kuki areas, then the village authority in the Naga areas, then of course land which are like forest reserve land and the government caste land. So now we can identify all the lands, the revenue officers can identify these lands. So we will be binding them down under the different acts of CRPC and NDNPS, so that, you know, later when they cultivate again, that punitive action can be taken. But of course, before that, we will be warning them properly, in the sense that after all, they are also our own citizens.
Right, right. Now, you know, Mr. Dongal, you know, there are heroin manufacturing facilities even inside Manipur. Do insurgents also control these facilities?
I will not say that they control the whole thing, the whole operation as such, but at the same time, 1 or 2 facilities they may be having, that also is not ruled out. But they definitely have an interest, and they give them space in their area, protection in their area, where they are, you know, in control of things.
Right. Now you see, you know, what is the main destination of the drugs you have been seizing? Is it Manipur or the Indian mainland, or do you think even beyond?
Well, such a huge amount of drugs cannot be consumed in Manipur, and I'm sure we have not caught everything, but of course we have caught quite a bit of it. It is meant, a lot of it, most of it I would say is meant for the market that is outside, though some also are used up here in Manipur.
Absolutely. Finally, Mr. Dongal, do you think the common people and the civil society too have a big role to play in eradicating the menace of drugs?
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, if you look from the different angles, you would say that from one angle that it is the work of the police, but from another angle, it is, the society plays the most important role. And from another side, if you see, the family plays a very important role. And from yet another angle, the other departments like social welfare and even the forest department, they also all play a different role. As far as the police is concerned, we know that how important the support of the people are, because without them, like you said, they are the main force multipliers, and we just cannot do without them. And in many cases, the villagers have themselves come forward to show us certain places or have come to help us in the time of destruction of this poppy field. And I will also tell you this much, that sometimes we do get information, though it is not very common, from the common people who allow us, who facilitate us to have some of these catches.
Absolutely. Mr. P. Dongal there, the Director General of Manipur Police, thank you very much for speaking to me on Northeast Tonight. Let's begin the discussions. Let me go straight, without wasting any time, let's go straight to Mr. Anand Chabongbam, a well-known public health consultant who has worked in several destinations across the world, as a public health consultant and in various capacities in the war on drugs in whatever form we call it. Mr. Anand Chabongbam, welcome to Notice Tonight. The problem in Manipur is absolutely serious. Otherwise, perhaps we would not have seen the Chief Minister and Biren Singh launching a war on drugs the moment he took over power for the second term a few weeks ago. What do you think of the situation? You have also heard the Manipur Director General of Police saying that there are insurgent nexus, there are heroin manufacturing facilities even within Manipur, and the consignments are so huge that apart from Manipur, they could be destined to other parts of India and even outside. So it's quite a serious situation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wasbir. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear anything what our respected DGP was saying.
Okay, carry on your perspective on the situation, because drugs worth estimated 100 crores have been seized in the last few weeks. The DGP is saying that there is an insurgent nexus. DGP is saying that the rebels engaged in ceasefire are also encouraging poppy cultivation and so on and so forth. And he has emphasized the need for the civil society also to join the process of eradicating drugs from Manipur.
Well, Mr. Wasbir, I would like to put the issue in two segments. First, when we're dealing with drug issues, there are four fundamental parameters which we need to look into. First is the supply reduction.
Yeah.
Are you saying something?
No, I'm not saying anything. Please carry on.
Okay. First is the supply reduction, which is probably not my domain, but nonetheless, I would like to emphasize that we've been seeing huge seizure in the state. Before I go into the other Southeast Asian and the global scenario, coming back to my own home state, the amount of seizure which we have been seeing in the last weeks and months is quite phenomenal. But nonetheless, we don't know who is the owner of all this huge consignment. Whosoever has been caught by the police are those PT carriers, believe me. So we need to, if we're looking about cleaning up this mess, we need to identify who is the owner of this huge multi-crore consignment. My domain is not on supply reduction, so I will leave to that for people to ponder, and policymakers and police people to look into what my humble suggestions are. The second point is demand reduction. Well, demand reduction is quite a huge scope. When we talk about demand reduction, people tend to think that it's only about rehab center, and rehab center. No, absolutely not. It's a huge scope. So probably I can come back into the second segment when we start talking about drug policy formulation or drug policy reforms. The third is harm reduction, because majority of the people who are using drugs or so-called drug users, they are absolutely not going to be 100% dependent on drugs. Believe me, these are not from me as an individual or from someone from Manipur. These are reports from UNODC and WHO. It's only approximately 10% of the people who use drugs globally are going to need drug dependency treatment. So how about those occasional users or people who are not going to develop dependency? That's where harm reduction comes in, so that we can protect them from getting into blood-borne diseases, getting overdose, and getting all kinds of necessary health cares, including counselings, and probably if the process goes smooth, they would be willing to give up drugs all over in their life. So it's a process.
Right.
Then comes the last part, which is that 10% of the entire drug using population who requires drug dependency treatment. Here comes the crux of the matter. We see a lot of government funded drug rehab centers. We see a lot of private drug rehab centers.
Yeah.
Have we ever looked, have the government, have the policymakers, have those departments who are in charge of have they ever looked into the capacity of people who are running these centers?
Okay, we will Anand, we will come into all of that. We will discuss deep seriously on this
Sure.
issue.
Sure.
Let me go to Bablu Loitongbam. I'm coming to you, Mr. Nongpok Nangba, the BJP spokesman. Let me go to Bablu Loitongbam. Bablu, I mean, you see, the DGP and the Chief Minister earlier have told our channel that insurgent groups are deeply involved in the drugs trade. The DGP saying that that is one of the main sources of funds for the insurgent groups. That means number one, the source lies across the border in Myanmar and its neighborhood, because Manipur is in the vicinity of the infamous Golden Triangle. But what about the Manipuri society is deeply affected by this menace? So as a human rights leader, what would you like to tell the insurgents? How serious is the problem? Okay, Bablu can't hear me at all. Let me turn to Mr. Nalinikanta Rajkumar on this question. Nalinikanta Rajkumar, a general question to you. Now, everybody is saying that all the top authorities are saying that the GGP has said insurgents are deeply involved, and that is one of the main source of funds for the insurgents. Now, do you think only a police action is enough? Do you think the society, the common man, the civil society has also a very big role to play?
Yes, Wasbir, you are right. Can I continue?
Please continue.
Okay. So, Wasbir, before coming to your question, I have two very important points that I would like to comment into the debate discussion. Will you allow me to speak for 3 minutes?
No, let us first. You please address the question. Let me have an opening remark for everybody. Let me have an opening remark from everybody, and before going into specifics.
Yeah. See, my opening remark in today's debate will be to comment on two important points in today's discussion. First point is on the need of shifting our drug use response from criminal justice issue to public health problem. And the second point is on the need of strengthening the quality of existing drug treatment facility in the state. This is two very important points that need to be considered while addressing the issue of drug use in the state, without which the ongoing war on drug campaign taken up by the state government of Manipur will not be effective. Let me share with you some factual information taking the reference from the international and national policy document. In 2015, UNODC and WHO created an informal international scientific network consisting of experts in addiction science to advise the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drug. This network issued 8 recommendations which were adopted unanimously by all the United Nations member states during the August 2016. So out of the 8 recommendation, I will quote 2 very important recommendations, which I think is very important to discuss in this platform. The first recommendation is eliminate stigma and discrimination toward individuals with substance use disorder. And the next recommendation is address substance use disorder as public health problem instead of criminal justice issue.
Okay,
So
we'll
it is.
stop at
So
that.
just one more point now. Just one more point, 1 second, please. So it is high time now for us to think carefully on why these 2 recommendations we talk about eliminating stigma and discrimination
Right.
toward drug user and shifting our drug use response from criminal justice issue to public health problem arrive in such a
Okay,
high level
that's
important
an important
meeting
point.
of
That
United
that is
Nations.
absolutely, that is an important point. Shifting the focus, treating the issue as a public health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. I will take a broad response from Mr. Nongpok Nangba, but before that, Bablu, can you hear me now? Okay, Mr. Rabiul Islam, the fact that the Chief Minister has said that insurgents are involved, the DGP has said that insurgents are involved, not only in trafficking, but also in growing poppy. The insurgents are backing the villagers in growing poppy. That means, do you think, as someone who has been observing this situation, do you think the involvement of the insurgents, as stated by the authorities, do you think that has made the situation much more grave, much more complicated?
I don't think it's something new. It's been going on for a long time. And the problem, like Anand also said, that only the petty retailers are being caught. So it takes 2 hands to clap. So these people are supporting it, but who's behind the scene? I think the authorities have to go in deeper to catch the big fish. Without that, it's not possible to stop this or stem the tide.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. The need for catching the big fish, that is the thing. Bablu Loitongbaum, we were discussing, there were a lot of suggestions coming in that it should be the focus to shift from a criminal justice issue to a public health issue and so on. These are stated positions where people have been trying to do that. But coming to the gravity of the situation in Manipur, the fact that Chief Minister Biren Singh has been saying in the last few weeks that the involvement of insurgents is now confirmed, that they are not only involved in the trafficking, but they are also involved in supporting the villages in growing poppy. The DGP has also said a short while ago during the interview. My question to you is, do you think the insurgents needs to think about the Manipuri society? 35,000 youths are listed as drug users from a report of the central government in 2019. These are only the injectable drug users. What about other drug users? That's a different story. So the situation is grave. So as a human rights leader, what would be your appeal? What would be your message to everybody? How to deal with this situation?
Thank you, Wasbir. Unfortunately, I was following the whole conversation because my connection has not been very good. My honest feeling about what is going on is that there is more smoke than fire in this whole war against drug. Because considering the scale of poppy cultivation that we are seeing in the hills of Manipur, there is enough provision under our NDPS Act to book the people who are in control of that situation. But till date, not a single person has been arrested for this, huge landmass that is under poppy cultivation. Not for a few weeks, but for many, many years. The war on drug didn't begin with this new government. It was there in the previous government as well. Also, if you look at the number of drug halt, ever since the war on drugs started, we have about 750 drug halts. But if you look at the number of conviction, there is only one case where there was a conviction. So there is an abysmal failure of the system that is put in place to
But
deal with this situation.
yeah, no,
Merely hogging the headlines of drug arrest is not going to solve this problem unless and until there is a strong institutional backup to ensure that the culprits who are arrested are actually booked and punished, and not just
okay. Now,
small fries,
no, Bablu,
but the
I got your
kingpins.
point. I've taken your point. But my question is, do you think the situation has become more grave because it is not just ordinary drug peddlers and drug traffickers? They are backed by an insurgency network. Do you think that has added to the gravity of the problem in Manipur?
Absolutely. The insurgent network is a problem. But the bigger problem, what I am saying, is the nexus between the insurgents and the yielder of power in the state. That is more dangerous than the insurgents per se.
Okay,
If it is just the insurgent, by now the problem would have been solved. The problem cannot sustain itself
Right.
if there is a concerted political will from the authority who runs the power of the state.
That is a very big charge leveled by Bablu Loitongboam. Let me turn to Mr. Nongpok Nangba, the Manipur BJP spokesman. Mr. Nongpok Nangba, first of all, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Mr. Nongpok Nangba.
I can hear you, yes.
Yes. You see, Chief Minister Biren Singh has launched a war on drugs. In the last 2 to 3 weeks, the police has achieved measured success. Drugs worth 100 crore estimated have been seized. Now, Mr. Bablu Loitongboam is saying that the problem which is bigger than the insurgent drug mafia nexus is the nexus between the insurgents and certain people in authority, people who are in political authority. So how do you respond? Which is a bigger problem according to you?
Before answering that, let us try to understand the problem itself. In fact, as we see the problem, we understand that this is not just a health problem. This is not just a criminal justice problem. It is a complex problem, which you can say is a socio-political, economic, and even cultural problem. It's a very complex one. And as you have just said, we have already declared a war against it. And you know the definition of war also. War includes a number of battles. Some battles you may lose, some battles you may win. But ultimately, what we are thinking is we have to win the war. So our approach is, kind of very different from what has been suggested in the discussion. We are looking into a humanistic approach also. We are looking into a criminalistic approach also. Manipur is not a very rich state. Many people who are allegedly doing the plantation of poppies, many of them are very poor people. So if we directly send them to the jail, again there may be some more problems. So the best option, what we have thought out is that we will rather rehabilitate them, because no one, in fact, once commits a crime because of their own choice. Maybe a few people may have committed a crime, because of their own wants. But many people, particularly these poor people who are doing plantations of poppies, they are not doing it, by their own choice, but by, we may say, by compulsion to, eke out a survival, their survival from that. So the approach for us is that rather than allowing them to continue the poppy plantation to eke out their livelihood, we will ask them to go for another option of plantation, maybe alternative plants.
Okay.
And at the same time, to go for rehabilitation of them. So,
okay, it is.
Yeah. And the second thing is those who are really, let me complete. Those who are really doing, earning money, a huge amount of money from this, they are criminals, and they should be treated as criminals. And that is exactly why my Chief Minister has said we will send them to jail. Whosoever is found possessing drugs, they will be sent to jail.
No, but,
So
but
we have
Mr.
to see it
Nongpok
not just
Nangba,
from a health
but
problem
Mr.
perspective.
Yes, but Mr. Nongpok Nangba,
Yes.
Mr. Anand had also said, you see, what about the big fish? The police have been arresting the carriers. Police have been arresting the carriers of drugs. But who are the recipients of these huge consignments? 10 crores, 20 crores, 50 crores. Who are the recipients? Is the Manipur government in touch with the counterparts in the neighboring states? Is the Manipur government taking help from the center? Is it necessary to first find out who are the big fishes?
See, we, as you have said earlier also, we are near to the infamous Golden Triangle. And there are available records, let's not say records, let's say literatures, which suggest that this problem started somewhere in the later part of 70s and early part of 80s. And in fact, since the problem has been, has got history now, kind of say about 50 years or so, this become kind of very chronic. And you can't treat the problem which is chronic in a minute, in a day, in a month. So let's try to see the problem in all its perspective, and not just say, oh, some big fish has not been arrested or some smaller peddlers has been arrested. Not that way.
Right.
Big fish will be arrested provided we have the resources. Right.
Right. Let me turn to Mr. Anand before I take a...
You are saying something.
Yeah. Let me turn to Mr. Anand before I take a quick break. Mr. Anand, at the end of the day, it doesn't seem the holistic approach is necessary, as you were saying. It's not just a police action. You talked about treatment, you talked about supply reduction, you talked about harm reduction, you talked about demand reduction. That means that involves the society. It is not just the police who can handle this problem, but there is no social awakening. Do you see a social awakening in Manipur?
Well, Mr. Wasbir, before I come to that point, let me just highlight a few trends which is happening in Asia, probably Southeast Asia at the most, and which has started coming this side, from Southeast Asia to South Asia. Okay, I agree that it was in the late 70s and early 80s till the 90s, heroin was the major drug of consumption. Okay, we were a transit route and we became a user state. We all agree to that. Now the point is, the number of drug users who are using heroin, which is manufactured from opium, has decreased quite a lot. Okay, and the number of people who are using ATS, which is amphetamine type stimulants, has increased in terms of hundreds and hundreds of percentage in the last, over a decade or so in Southeast Asia, mostly. And it started coming to this part of our country where we call, we name it as WY tablet, so on and so forth. So that's a major issue of concern, okay? And these are not manufactured within India, in Manipur. The other second point which I wanted to highlight is that there has been already government acknowledgement that local drug laboratories has been busted within the state of Manipur.
Yes, that's the point. Yes.
Okay, so let's stop talking about we can't do anything with Myanmar at this point because the country is under military coup, and it's very difficult to come to a negotiating or whatever workable solution with them at this point. So let's focus on what is happening contextually in our state. One, two. The major thing is what we need at this point is we need to have a very balanced drug policy.
Right.
When I say a balanced drug policy, we are talking not only about police capturing or seizing drugs. Okay?
Absolutely.
We are talking about the criminal justice system. We are talking about the social and health programs. We are talking about strengthening communities.
Absolutely. Mr. Anand, I'll have to stop you there. I'll go for a quick break, but don't go away. When I come back, I'll go straight to Mr. Rajkumar, Mr. Bablu Loitongbom, and of course, Mr. Rabiul Islam in the studios and take a comment from Mr. Nongpok Nangba of the BJP in Manipur. Don't go away. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Let me go straight to Mr. Nalinikanta Rajkumar, the president of CONI. Now, Mr. Rajnikanta Rajkumar, you know, there are 21 government-run facilities as far as treatment is concerned in Manipur. There are more than 50 to 60 treatment facilities that have come up in the private sector. And your organization and another organization that filed a case in the Manipur High Court also, you know, talking about how these private run facilities are run. This is the judgment of one of the judgments of the High Court and so on. Now there are complaints that some of these private facilities are inflicting serious problems on the people who go for treatment in these centers. So the issue is treatment as well. How to rehabilitate these people, how to bring the drug users, drug addicts back on track. So what about treatment? Because war on drugs has to be a holistic approach, isn't it?
Yes. Hello.
Carry on.
Oh, yes. So that is one of the alarming issue that we have in Manipur now, as we have rightly mentioned. Out of 34,344 injecting drug users that we have, as per the studies conducted by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, comparing with the number of drug users that we are having in Manipur, we have only 21 drug treatment center with a treatment slot of 420 patients at one go. So comparing with the number of drug dependent and the number of drug treatment slot, there is a huge gap difference, due to which so many private run rehab centers are mushrooming up in Manipur, because demand is more and the treatment facility is very limited. But unfortunately, these many private centers are now coming up in Manipur without following any proper protocol.
Right.
Due to which so many unwanted incidents are happening day in and day out in Manipur for the last 3-4 years. Forceful pickup from the street without the family consent, extortion of money, and the people involved in this are the local club, Maira Paivis, even the police people. So in order to address the issue of drug treatment in Manipur, we have approached the nodal department, that is the Social Welfare Department of Manipur, along with the State Legal Service Authority, during one of the consultation meeting organized in 2017 in the presence of Justice Executive Chairman, State Legal Service Authority, where we have requested government to formulate a state-specific guideline so that they can regulate this private drug treatment center. However, they have never, tried to listen to so many representations that we have submitted to the concerned department. So finally, in 2020, we have filed a public interest litigation, and we have a High Court order of PIL number 32 of 2020, dated 21st July, which direct government to frame a regulation for private drug treatment center within 3 months. Legal notice was submitted for compliance of court order on 24th July. Again, a reminder, legal notice was submitted again on 18 December 2020. However, the department failed to take up the necessary action. So due to which
Right. I have to cut you short there. Bablu Letungbom, I was asking, this is a social problem. 35,000 youths directly affected by injectable drug. This is a 2019 survey. Now, 3 years have passed, the numbers could have well gone up, but that is only injectable drugs. Now, as I said, the numbers could run into lakhs. A lot of people report, a lot of people don't report, people keep it secret, the families try to hide it, that their children are drug addicts. Now, the problem is, my question to you is very simple. Why is it that we don't see much of a social awakening in all stratas of society in the state? What should be done? Don't you think every one of us have a responsibility in making people aware of this and come out, talk about it, and try to help the authorities and others to remove this menace?
Wasbir, I think there is a lot of people's movement against drug and the harmful use of alcohol. We have a collective called the 3.5 Collective, because the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, target number 5 is prevention and treatment of drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. And Manipur has a long history of stop intoxicant movement led by the women called the Nisaban movement, which further converted into the Maira Paidi. So there is a people's movement already. The problem, as I have pointed out earlier, is that this has to be a three-pronged approach, as explained by our experts, starting with the supply reduction, demand reduction, and harm reduction. We have done fairly well in terms of harm reduction and demand reduction, in terms of NGOs, movement, people's mobilization. But what we have terribly failed is the supply reduction. In fact, the only commodity that is gradually reducing in terms of price is drug. Petrol price have increased, potato price have increased, onion price have increased, but drug price is the only thing that is gradually reducing. So unless and until we deal with the source of the problem, when so much of drug is pumped into the society, there will always be a frustrated youth who is going to
I
look
think
for
that is a very important point.
adventure.
That is a very important point which Bablu Loitongboam is making. I am coming to Mr. Nongpok Nangba for his views, but Rabiul Islam, there is a war on drugs in Assam as well. The Himanta Biswa Sharma, the chief minister, when he assumed office on the 10th of May last year, he had launched a war on drugs. My question to you, what kind of similarities or dissimilarities you see between the war on drugs in Assam and the war on drugs in Manipur?
It's it's quite similar. In fact, since Manipur has always been ahead in this battle, not from today, for a long time back, and we have a lot to learn from Manipur. But the thing is, supply reduction also is being done well here now since the battle cry of Chief Minister last year. But unfortunately,
the route is through Manipur. One of the major routes is through Manipur.
No, for demand reduction, which everyone has recognized, the demand reduction is we have to do a lot of this work on demand reduction. There's nothing being done yet. It's been 1 year and there's been a long delay.
Of course, you are talking about Assam.
Yes.
Demand reduction, a lot of work to do in the field of demand reduction. That's what Rabiul Islam is saying. As far as Assam is concerned, we're trying to do a comparison with Manipur. Now, Mr. Nongpok Nangba, basically Manipur has to do a lot in supplies reduction. That is what some of our panelists are suggesting. But when you have, at least we don't know what is the extent of police involvement in this, because police is the main law enforcing agency mandated to tackle drugs. Yes, 2 policemen have been arrested, 2 policemen have been, one of them have been dismissed. Now the point is, what is the extent of this nexus? The police itself is saying that they are looking into it, they're trying to separate the good from the bad. Now, how do you view the situation? What is your government going to do in this regard?
See, Wasbir, it is not just 2 police officers who has been removed from service.
Yeah.
In fact, there is already recent developments. We have been fighting this war for the last about 5 years now. In the last almost 5 years, we have been able to uncover a number of police personnel who have been involved in this kind of problem, and they have been either removed or they have been suspended. They have been. We have invoked whatever rules that are available against them, so that we can also kind of treated the police department as far as this problem is concerned. Now, if you are saying what has been the police has been doing, I'll just give you some data. Since 2017 to 22, I mean till March, we have 1,712 cases registered. Okay, and the number of cases which has been charged is 678. So, in fact, the police also, and of course the other authority and other department, they also have been doing their jobs. But now our concern is not just that. Our concern is to make this war a people's war.
Yeah.
Because as I have just said earlier, this is not just a health problem, or this is not just a criminal justice problem. It is a whole complex problem, having involvement and having ramification to our society, to our political systems, to our even economic system. And now I will say it is also has got cultural connotations. Because the problem I was telling you that it has come up since the last late 70s and late 80s. So let us not just say it is a health problem or it is a political problem or some people has not been arrested or the police has not been doing their job.
Right.
In fact, who are police? This very small size of the police personnel who are working in the state, this whole policeman will not be able to solve the whole problem. We people has to be involved in this. And you must be knowing the history of war on drugs in America also. Why the war on drugs in America has failed? Because this has been badly politicized. The black, America, they have called it a racist war. No, this has been kind of politicized. And if you are going to try to politicize here also, this war against drug is going to fail. Right? So
right.
Instead of, telling this, that, we have to make this a people's war. Let all of it be involved in this. And in fact, we have been able to bring into our war some 30 communities to support our government on the war of drugs. This happened on 25th February 2021.
Nongpok Nangba, hold your thoughts. Mr. Anand, Nongpok Nangba has said a very important point, which I was also saying. How to make this a people's war? What are some of the things that you would like to highlight very quickly? We don't have much time. How to make this into a people's war?
Okay, I'm quite happy that one of our panel member has mentioned the war on drugs in the U.S. Started by President Nixon in 1971. Let me tell all our viewers very categorically that Mr. John Klichman, who was the chief policy advisor on the war on drugs of Nixon, he said, quote, "Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did, unquote. The whole war on drugs in the U.S. was targeting the left-wing anti-war groups and the black people in the U.S. Let us be very clear on that. And the war on drugs failed in the U.S.
No, but is there any similarity in Manipur? There are no similarity in Manipur. People are targeting the drug users. People are targeting the drug users, drug traffickers.
Yes. Let me come back to that point. I just give that reference because our panelists from the BJP mentioned that. I just want to clarify that. On the problem of what we are facing, what we need is a policy reformation where we need to identify the problem, right? Number one. And two, we need to look into policy alternatives. How do we deal with these issues? And then the political will. The convergence of these three will lead into issues being perceived. How do we the issues being perceived as a problem, whether a policy alternative exists, how this fits into the overall political environment. Yeah, and thirdly, we need to deal into the entire issue. I'm not talking about the supply reduction paradigm. I'm talking about the overall issues which the society and the youth. When we talk about demand reduction, are we waiting for the youth to start taking drugs? Or should we start thinking about some alternatives where we do something before they put their hand on drugs?
Okay.
It seems like the perception.
Anand, your points duly noted. Let me sorry about that because I am running absolutely short of time. Mr. Kanta, how to make it a people's war? Can you be specific in your response? How to convert this into a people's war, where the people are battling this in all strata of society?
There is a need for involvement of all the holder, including drug users community, in responding to the issue of drug use in Manipur. Because historically, when we introspect our past strategy for addressing drug use problem, most nations' strategy was centered on punishment, but we hardly see any success story of addressing the issue through criminalizations. So the war on drug campaign, which is being launched by the Honorable Chief Minister Manipur, though it is a welcome move, I should say, however, a clear objective of it need to be developed and made available in the public domain with, for example, like objectives should be developed in such a way with the inclusion of strategy to address demand, supply, and harm
Right.
reduction. The objective need to clearly define the war on drug campaign. Is it going to target whom? The drug users or the drug traffickers?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
otherwise we cannot call the process of ongoing war on drug in Manipur a holistic approach. Holistic approach means providing support as a whole. The support that we need to consider is physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. So without inclusion of strategy like decriminalization and strengthening drug treatment,
Very,
we
very, very
cannot call it
important
as
point.
a
Very, very,
holistic
very
approach.
specific point made by Mr. Nalikanta Rajkumar. Decriminalize the issue. Come up with a human and holistic and comprehensive approach. That means it need a policy division. Final comment, Bablu Loitongbohm, how to make it a people's war, how to get win the battle.
Absolutely, Wasbir. We have to understand that the victim of the drug menace are the drug users, people whose lives are destroyed because of drug. They should be leading the war on drug, and the culprit are the drug traffickers who are actually enjoying the patronage of the power that be, because they control unlimited amount of money. This has to be reversed. It has to be government plus the victims coming together, targeting the traffickers who are the perpetrator of this problem.
Absolutely.
The opposite is happening now today. We are targeting the victims, and it seems the government is working hand in glove with the traffickers, because trafficker has unlimited money. The estimated turnover is 3,000 crore. In a state like Manipur, where the annual budget is 30,000, the drug mafia is infusing 10% of the annual budget, and they are disturbing the equilibrium and the political economy, and therefore the government seems to be now
absolutely.
what the
Your
English
points
term
well
will
taken.
say.
Points well taken, Bablu Loitongbohm. This is indeed a very serious problem in Manipur now. The war on drugs launched by Chief Minister N. Biren Singh. It is extremely timely at this point in time. And but as our panelists have said, that this is a holistic approach is necessary. It's not just a police action. And as the BJP spokesperson, Mr. Nangpok Nangba, has said that how to make it a people's war. And our panelists are saying that this has to look into all aspects of the issue, human approach, and how to make the drug users who are the main victims lead the battle against drug trafficking in the state. And now the government has already taken action against some policemen who have been found to be involved. And whether, as some of our panelists have said, whether the drug users also enjoy certain amount of political patronage, that needs to be found out. I'm sure the government of Mr. N. Biren Singh, which launched the war on drugs, will look into all aspects of the problem in order to free the Manipuri society from this menace called drugs and prepare its youths to take on the world, because they are the new people who have the future of not just Manipur but of the nation as a whole. I thank all my panelists for participating in the program and the viewers for watching the show. Good night and goodbye.